So this tutorial here is kind of an extension of the concept from the previous tutorial on how to do heat effects. So if you review that tutorial, you'll have some idea of what we're getting into here. Again, I have some of my own shortcut sandbox stuff here, but conceptually you should be able to follow along. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to do an ice effect. And I'll just show you what that looks like first. So it kind of reflects your characters, any of the characters or anything that you want reflected in the scene, you'd put on a specific layer that you want reflected. You can even pass the character in behind the ice. This is actually supposed to be an animated ice bitmap. This is frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. There's a frame 4 and a frame 5, and if I were to actually animate those frames, this would actually shimmer because it's actually using the ice image itself in part to determine how the reflection should look. So the way this works is fairly simple. If we go up here, what we're going to need is we've got our main target that we're rendering to, an ice target layer. So anything that you want, any kind of reflective bumpy surfaces, we can put on that layer. We have our animation target layer, and I'm also using a mask target layer, and that kind of determines how the reflections work with whatever's in the scene. So I could have downward or sideways masks so that it would reflect more to the left or more to the right or more upward, depending on what I want to do. And what you'd do is you'd render your masks in one layer here, and just to show you what that mask looks like, I'll just go like this, and I'll just comment this for a moment. And when you render those masks, all this other stuff you wouldn't see, but in that layer, all these black and white kind of gradient masks will be anywhere where there's a reflection. I'm just going to turn that off here because we don't want to see that. That's only to be rendered here and then used by the shader. We also render ice layer right here, which is just what the ice looks like by itself with nothing else in the scene. You can see here I'm clearing the screen for each of these targets so that everything else is black. All the surrounding pixels will have zero effect. It's just the mask that has effect and the ice target, which will be drawn over top of the background layer. And we also have our animation target, which is drawn to its own layer. We can apply whatever effects we want to that layer. And we can also use that layer in conjunction with our ice effects. First of all, we got our ice image that we can draw into the scene. We've got our background, we've got our character, and we got that gray, that black gray gradient mask that I showed you. It's actually just a 64 by 64 square. I can show you it real quick. So this is the ice, and this is that gradient square that I'm using as your reflection mask. This is the only character in the scene, so that is the character. The ice shader is named Ice Reflect and is loaded here. I'm going to send to that shader as a parameter the animation texture, the mask texture, and I need to send it a float for the size of a pixel, which everything has to scale between 0 to 1. So the height of the pixel is what we actually need because we're sampling upward. So I go 1 divided by height to get the height of a single pixel. So if I peek that here, you can see what this actually would be for you. And then we set the mask target, we draw that mask. I'm using the ice image to create a destination rectangle that's the same size as the ice, using this little helper down here, which returns this rectangle. Now, after I have that layer done, I can draw all my ice onto the ice layer in my ice render target, and then I could switch to the animation render target, which has all the characters, and draw all my characters. So I'm drawing that little whizzy character so that it's centered around the mouse wherever I put the mouse. I switch to my main target and I draw the background so that it fills the screen. I draw the animation target, which is the same size as the screen, so I have it fill the screen. And then I'm done that render batch, and I start a new render batch and I tell it I want to use the ice effects. So this is actually this right here. On the end here you can see that I am putting the effects in here into the begin for the sprite batch. Then I draw that ice target to the scene and I'm done. And it used the ice effects. So I'll show you how the ice effects works. Just like the previous tutorial, if it's OpenGL version, then it'll use these types of shaders, the version 3, and for DirectX 9, it'll be 4 or 5. The sprite batch is going to want to use register S0. We don't have to pass in the texture here, it's going to pass it in by itself. So we don't have to have a name to give it. But for our textures, we're going to use register S1 for the animation layer, and I'm going to call the sampler animSamp. We have to pass it into animText, and for the mask sampler, we'll use slot 2. We're going to pass it into maskText. That's that gradient that we're going to use for figuring out how to do the reflection. It sort of looks up the distance for the reflection. So black would be 0, white would be a very far distance, so when it sees white it's going to reach way up to the top of the texture to reflect that part. This matches up to the vertex shader in Sprite Batch. So here we're going to get our ice color, and we're going to create a copy of the UV coordinate passed in, and we want to sample upward. We want to sample the reflection of the animated character. So what we do is we take the Y coordinate, we're going to sample up. So we take the size of a pixel and multiply it by this value times 128. So if it's on the bottom of the ice, which is 64, we want to go up 128 because we want to go up. If we go up 64, that'll just be at the top of the ice. So we want to go in the negative direction times 128 to get 64 above the ice. And we can pick the red, green, or blue color channel for a different effect. It'll be the same effect essentially, it'll just look a little bit different. So it doesn't matter if you pick red, green, or blue. Potentially you could do other things with other colors, other color channels, and create other kinds of reflective effects by doing that. So we have to multiply by the pixel size, and that'll move our coordinates it samples from above the ice. And we're going to use that UV2 coordinate and sample from the animation or the animated character layer and get a reflection, sort of colored pixels reflecting from the characters, which we can add into the ice. So I'm doing an additive blend here where I add the animation color or the animated character's color to the ice color. And finally we can colorize the final color if we want. Usually that'll be white, so it'll be 100% of each color channel. One thing that's a little bit strange though is I would have thought this would have done a perfectly linear reflection at first, and then I was going to add distortion after. So this leads me to wonder if it's actually getting the sample colors from this here for some reason. Okay, I figured it out. While what we were doing there earlier looked really cool, this is actually what I was really going for. So what I'd like to do now is combine what I did there with this and get a better result. What I actually did was I put the ice target here in maskText, and actually that looks pretty good. I could actually leave it like that and I'd be happy with it. But I'm going to see if I can improve it some more and make it so that it's reflecting downward, because the way it was using a distorted copy of the character, but it wasn't flipping the image. So I'm going to see if I can fix that. So I'm just going to pause the video here and play around with it for a bit. Okay, I just unpaused it for a moment to show you something. This was 128. If we go to 256, we get a flatter version of it. I'll show you that. And I actually kind of like the flatter version better. So I'm going to go with that. And I'll add that distortion in there now. Okay, I found something that looks pretty good. This time I'm distorting the X and Y direction. If we wanted, we could just distort, and it's actually a little bit imbalanced. It's kind of distorting more just in one direction. So, could balance that out a bit better. So all I did was I took UV2 again, and instead of just getting a flipped copy of that, I'm adding this distortion here by just taking the original ice color. The X and Y component of the ice color are multiplied by the size of a vertical pixel. So it's a little bit inaccurate in the horizontal direction. And then I'm multiplying that by 50. Now to make it really accurate, I do horizontal pixel size times the X value, and then the vertical 1 times the Y value, and then times whichever number here. Whether you pick the R, G, or B may depend on the color of the ice you're using. In this case, I have a purple ice, so I can get away with using red. But ice is definitely going to have blue in it, so you can use the blue channel. I would say almost definitely, maybe not necessarily. And yeah, even with the blue channel, it gets a nice distortion here. I feel like the reflection is going too far to the left there. So I go to sample, maybe minus equals. Maybe I should just do the Y direction. Just go with Y maybe. Perhaps addition would be better in Y. Go for addition and see what that does. So a lot of times with shaders, it's just a matter of trial and error until you get a nice result. So sometimes some of those mysterious formulas may even be a little bit mysterious to the person who made them. And that actually looks pretty good. I like that. I think I'm going to keep that. So if I come from below it though, you don't really see much distortion. But that's okay because I kind of just wanted it from above. However, I could actually combine another color. Okay, I actually combined the first result with the second result. So that way if he goes behind the ice, kind of have this neat icy distortion going on. And if he goes on top of the ice, yeah, it looks great. It's a little shinier too because it's adding in an extra color. Now it's a little bit more complicated. So basically I did what we did the first time. I added this little section here. If you want to keep it cleaner and you just want that initial reflection, you might just go with this. If you want to combine the two, I added this extra one in here and then added that third color onto here. So this is all additive blending. And I just picked 120. You could toy with this number, maybe 50, maybe 200, see what kind of different results you get. Like if I go 256, what do I get? That's a little bit too crazy. And maybe I only wanted 40. So if I go behind, oh yeah, 40 is actually great. Because it kind of stretches it out like you would expect. Yeah, 40 is perfect. Okay. I noticed though for some reason it's brightening up the character itself. So I'll fix that too. Okay, I figured out how to fix it properly. So I got this refraction sort of effect going on here. And reflection up here, and it looks great. I love it. Alright, let's go check it out. So what I got now is I added this line in here. I'm saying mask color and then getting the mask here instead of doing it here. So now I just substitute this mask color.b here instead of this. And what I can do is I can say if mask color.b is less than 0.004, then I'm just going to return an empty transparent pixel, because otherwise I'm going to draw over top of my character more than once and brighten it up, which I don't want to do. So this way it's only drawing where the mask pixels are, which is what we want. And the result is perfect. Hopefully that was easy enough to understand, and hopefully that's useful. Thanks for watching.